When the history of the second Trump term is written, this will be the week that Donald Trump came out of the closet in terms of his hiring metrics. Expertise is optional, and he doesn't care if we all know that, but loyalty is absolutely mandatory. The result is, as intended by Donald Trump, the complete and brazen politicization and weaponization of agencies that were never supposed to be political or weaponized. They're supposed to adhere to norms and the rule of law strictly, and national intelligence, national security, not loyalty to one guy, especially not when that guy is Donald Trump. On the controversial installation of Trump attack dog Bill Pulte as the director of national intelligence, former principal deputy DNI Sue Gordon said this today in the Bulwark, quote, "That's what politicization fundamentally is. You are putting someone in charge who wants to support the president by going and finding the things that he wants to be true. You've now just corrupted the whole discipline." On the same day that this guy, Bill Pulte, was put into a job for which he has zero qualifications, here's what the Washington Post reported on what is happening at the Pentagon with one of Donald Trump's foot soldiers from January 6th. Quote, "A convicted January 6th rioter who later said that he regretted his participation in the U.S. Capitol attack has been hired by the Trump administration to work inside a Pentagon office that manages highly classified military operations." That's according to 4 people who are familiar with that matter. The appointment has, quote, "raised alarms internally among staff who question how anyone convicted in the assault on American democracy could be trusted for such a sensitive role in the United States government." And at the Justice Department, Reuters today reports this, quote, "Kurt Olsen, a White House official who aided President Donald Trump's attempts to overturn the 2020 election, has joined as a senior attorney reporting to a prosecutor seeking to build a wide-ranging criminal case against the president's foes." Kurt Olsen joined the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida on Monday. That's according to a Justice Department spokesperson who confirmed that news. That is the office where the wild and far-fetched grand conspiracy case is being built. I want to bring in former assistant special agent in charge at the FBI and national security and intelligence analyst Michael Feinberg. Also joining us, former deputy national security advisor to President Obama, now the co-host of Pod Save the World, contributor Ben Rhodes. Michael Feinberg, at this point, the error is in not connecting the dots. And I guess my question for you is to pull the thread forward. What do you see as possible?
Nothing good. To allude to a children's book that has been on my mind frequently as news like this breaks, this is a terrible, horrible, very bad, no good idea. There is a lot of controversy within the intelligence community about whether the role of the Director of National Intelligence and its associated office should exist in the first place. But one thing that everybody agrees on, that they agree on so much that it is part of the foundational statute establishing the office, is that the director needs to have extensive experience in the work of intelligence, in the work of national security. It's one of the few presidential appointee jobs where that is spelled out as a bare baseline that needs to be met. There is nothing in Bill Pulte's background whatsoever that remotely ties to the world of intelligence and national security. It is difficult for me to think of anyone, even within this rogues gallery of an administration we currently have, who would be more unqualified for the job for which they were selected. And the danger is real. This is somebody who managed to politicize an office that functionally oversees mortgages. What he could do with all of the nation's secrets could be deleterious, because you can really convince the public, or rather, you can mislead the public by only selectively leaking parts of a classified story. We see this very much in the way the Republicans have been selectively releasing documents relating to the investigations of Donald Trump by Jack Smith. If you only choose the most controversial pieces of paper and provide zero context or background, you're going to fundamentally mislead the public.
Ben Rhodes, let me read you what the Atlantic's Shane Harris writes about what Trump wants from Bill Pulte. Quote, the president has shown no sign that he wants a DNI who can coordinate the work of the 18 intelligence agencies and harness the power of a multi-billion-dollar global espionage network to provide senior government leaders the best up-to-the-minute information about threats to U.S. national security. No. What Trump has made very clear is that he wants a DNI who will selectively declassify government documents that help fuel conspiracy theories, use the authorities of the state to enact political retribution against his enemies, and try to persuade Americans that Venezuela and maybe the Democratic Party are rigging elections by fiddling with voting machines. From that perspective, Bill Pulte is even better suited for the job than the woman he is replacing.
Yeah, I mean, this is not subtle. It's clear as day. The man has two functions that are summarized there: political retribution and conspiracy theories, most likely around election interference. And then just to put a fine point on both of those, this is a man that could comb through mortgage records to come up with charges to level at people like Letitia James in New York that were so ridiculous that they were essentially laughed out of court. Again, what could he do with the vast amount of information that is available in the U.S. intelligence community, right? I mean, of course, that's what he's there to do. And then secondly, we know Tulsi Gabbard was down in Fulton County when the FBI was seeking to seize ballots to validate most likely some conspiracy theory about the 2020 election. Well, clearly, if there's a midterm election result that Donald Trump doesn't like, do we really think he's not going to claim that there was some foreign interference? If that seems hyperbolic, that's exactly what he did after the 2020 election when he concocted this insane theory that Venezuela meddled. And so do we really think Bill Pulte is not going to give Donald Trump what he wants if he wants to try to disrupt the most fundamental aspect of our democracy and election? So that's all he's there to do. And that also means, by the way, nobody's minding the store. Like, there are very real threats. There are very real needs in the intelligence community. Bill Pulte's not going to pay attention to any of that. The fact that he's actually going to continue to be in charge of the Federal Housing Authority, like, tells you everything you need to know about the seriousness of this. It's not about managing the intelligence community. It's about those two things. And I think the one last thing I'd say, Nicole, that's ominous about this is it's a reminder that the Trump administration is just going to get weirder and more extreme the longer it goes. That happened the first time around, where at the end, it was only the rogues gallery loyalists who were left minding the store. Well, this time it's getting even weirder, and we're not even 2 years into this. So we should get ready for more Bill Pultes and more prominent positions as this goes on.
I want to show you something weird, and I'm a little conflicted about sharing this at all, but it's sort of in the category of how bad is he? He's so bad that Tillis and Bessent were debating whether they wanted to punch him or kick his ass. Let me show this to you.
Did you actually tell Pulte you were going to punch him in the face?
No, sir. I actually said I was going to kick his ass.
Good. Okay, good. I share the emotion.
This guy is hated by Republicans, including and up to the other Republican sycophants in the Trump cabinet, Michael Feinberg. I say that not in the interest of anyone's personality. It's obviously sort of a cult of personalities. But to point out that he's an outlier, not just among Republicans like Thom Tillis, but in this cabinet of Trump sycophants. He's someone that Bessent describes as, quote, I said I was going to kick his ass.
Yeah, look, we are in unparalleled time in American history right now. There's been a lot of talk about the deprofessionalization of the government and the loss of state capacity from the perspective of the civil service. But I think what gets lost in that conversation is the number of people in very senior positions who are just bluntly, like, completely and utterly unqualified intellectually in terms of credentials, from the point of view of independence and integrity, from the point of view of just raw intelligence. They're not suited for their jobs. I mean, we have a Secretary of Homeland Security whose main claim to fame when he's run for office has been how many cage fights he's been in. The trend is getting worse. There was a time for most of American history where we were willing to recognize that some people were smart and capable and others less so. And we generally prioritized getting the former group into positions of power. I don't know what went wrong. Maybe some sort of backlash against technocracy or a populist upswell, obviously. But for the good of our national security and just our standard of living, we might want to start thinking more about traditional leadership qualities again, rather than one's enthusiasm for UFC or going after political opponents.